She's someone I've known for a number of years now, and she's someone who's not just great at the channels, but also is really involved in a lot of things. We have a women's leadership council. Gretchen has given up her time to be part of that, to be part of the advisory board for the council. So she's not just someone who's doing a job, she's someone who's actually getting involved and really helping to change things in the industry. She's a business builder who creates and leads teams that create from white space and build ecosystems that empower customers and partners. She obviously started at 13 years old because she's got 25 years experience in the tech industry across the US and worldwide. And she's built systems and mobilized organizations to maximize the collective power of customers, partners, technical evangelists. She's been involved in startups. She's helped developers drive innovation. Her current role is the VP of AI and Sustainability at Microsoft, and she's building the path for Microsoft's US acceleration to its artificial intelligence, cloud, and sustainability initiative. And the goal is to become carbon negative by 2030. So, more than enough from me. Gretchen, a big, warm, channel focused welcome to you.
Rod, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for being here today. What an introduction. I love the age of 13, but yes, I've been in the channel in some way over 25 years now. I love the channel. I believe we cannot win without a vibrant ecosystem. And now in my new role as Vice President of AI and Sustainability, it is all about building the ecosystem again, but recognizing that we're going through transformation. And so today I wanted to share with you a little bit about how you think about your channel, the transformation that your channel is going through, and how you need to be thinking about what that looks like as you build the channel of the future. So let me just start by saying that, look, we have to go through transformation. And I think this is something that any of you have seen, if you're reading anywhere, that digital transformation is front and center. But the hardest thing is failing to transform. And this goes to ourselves as channel leaders as well, which is it is easy to take the path to continue on with the channel and working on the channel the way it is. But the reality is that our customers are transforming. And thus, we need to be able to transform to support the channel, to ultimately support the opportunity that we see, which is over 100 trillion in the next 10 years around this transformation. If we don't do this, if we don't transform our channel, if our channel does not actually help our customers in digital transformation, they will be disrupted and recognize that there's a very real threat. And looking at 52% of companies already in the Fortune 500 are now gone since just 2000. That is a very significant stat. Now put in things like artificial intelligence, IoT, the other emerging capabilities that are coming into market. I talk to customers every day. If they are not building in front of the transformation, things like these market signals, market dynamics, and now the global pandemic can make a significant impact. And so very, very important to continue to think about what that landscape looks like. And that landscape is digital. So digital transformation really is about the reimagining of how people and data and processes really create new value for their customers, new value for employees, new value for operations. And so really important to understand that if you're going to transform the channel, you have to know who the channel is selling to and what is actually happening at the customer themselves. And this is all about the digital landscape. Absolutely, now monetization of assets is becoming quite high. Digital companies are looking at now generating more than 100 million in income per year. You can see now that the CEOs are looking at digitization as a way to expect increase in profit margins. And I would say lastly, most important, that the majority of CEOs will build out their digital capability in-house, but also that involves the digital capability and support with partner. And so understanding the landscape and knowing where we're going, how then do we think about what the channel needs to do to be able to change? One of the things that I love that Satya talks about is that we've seen 2 years worth of digital transformation in 2 months. Satya Nadella, our CEO, quite a visionary. But I think we all in this room, in our virtual room, have seen this. We're here today, actually in a virtual environment instead of in person. We are leaning in with digital transformation in an accelerated way that we actually never had anticipated before. But the reality is that while we're forced into a rapid sense of digital transformation, we know that we are in a challenge around COVID. And we can't address the channel trends of digital transformation without first looking at how we actually recover and get back to the business journey of a new normal. And I'll talk a little bit more about this as we move forward. The way that we think about this is kind of in three tranches. The first around is respond. How are we all dealing with the crisis? How are we helping our partners? How are we making sure that they have access to capital to be able to respond? How do we make sure that we are being able to cut costs and ensure that we are getting after the business use cases that are going to help source the best case of revenue for our partners and for our customers? But once we get into stability, we need to focus on recovery. And that is really what is the acceleration that we need based on what our customers are telling us. And so this is a very important thing to understand, because if our channel needs to change and we're still sort of stuck, if you will, in a global pandemic, trying to make every day work, it is so important to focus in the recovery around targeted customer scenarios that are going to really help the customer at the end of the day. Lastly, I would just say, when we get into recovery and we hover somewhere around recovery now, and we sort of go forward and move back, we want to paint a picture of the future. And this is a future that we're painting every day about reimagine. And this is about taking advantage of the opportunities that are there, being able to streamline operations, engage with customers differently, digitize, if you will, the way of everything from your value chain and supply chain to customer service, and ultimately, how are you selling? And actually, the customers that are in that reimagine stage now, even though we're responding, are the ones that are going to come out of the pandemic much stronger than they have before. Why does that matter to us as channel leaders? Why does this sort of framework matter? Because this is where we need to get our channel to understand where and how to serve the customer so that we can see continued growth and continued success in a thriving and vibrant ecosystem. So we recognize that. We understand that that's happening. But there's real forces at large here around the channel. And a couple of them that I wanted to share with you, and we'll dig in a little bit deeper around the transformation so you can prepare on how you move forward. We see new buying patterns that are happening with the customer. The indirect channel, if you will, is shrinking in different ways and being replaced by other things such as marketplaces. We're looking at changing business models, and what is the impact of those business models? Who are the partners of the future that can be able to capitalize on that? The partner experience is king. For long gone are the days, if you will, of sort of this transactional channel. The partner experience and what they're getting from you is going to differentiate anything more than just having the best product for them to be able to sell. Near and dear to my heart is emerging tech. It's actually no longer emerging. We'll talk a little bit about that. And the one that I'm in right now, which is a shift from what I call the channel, which we're all here, is to the ecosystem. And the ecosystem is a broad connection and collective, if you will, to be able to serve the needs of our customers. And lastly, I'll say the big change as we're all moving to the cloud, all looking at various elements of cloud services, is how do you think about value as a service? So let's dig in a little bit and talk a little bit more about that. So buying patterns. The reality is that buyers are now looking at other ways to actually service their needs. They're looking at web direct. They're looking at marketplaces. They're looking at e-commerce. consumer trends are happening and certainly shifting out as we think about how we actually serve those customers. And then emerging techs are actually carrying lower percentages of cost and revenue. And so while customers are demanding some of the most advanced in technology, how do you build the right business model to ensure that your partners are making money? So let's talk about that a little bit more. When we think about changing business models, one of the things that I think we would say we probably recognize at this place is that on-prem software is going away. We are going into a services business, and that is a cloud business, whether that's in the managed services, software as a service, platform as a service, consulting, infrastructure, etc. But the reality is that we are now looking, and Microsoft is tracking. We are seeing continued channel evolution to modernize, if you will, into those cloud services. And so now what happens is we've got to ensure that we are supporting a channel that is able to not only sell in this environment, but actually provide real value in the business models that they are going to need to create in this new world. A couple of them is super important. One is you think about, what is the role of ISVs play? What is the role of IP play within your channel market? How are you rewarding and growing that part of the business? How are you changing some of your transactional partners to look at more value-added services, cloud services, and others? And we'll dig in a little bit on how to address some of these business models today. The first one, I think, really important is the shift. The shift from your traditional channel partner to ecosystem, professionals. And this is a huge connection and collection, if you will, of people coming together in an ecosystem that includes influencers. And so how are you thinking about building your influencer channel, whether that's in social, digital? Many are looking at ambassador programs or advocates. Many today have an affiliate program. But if you don't have an influencer strategy, this is one where you need to start thinking about this because it's going to play a big role in the new ecosystem of the future. And then you think about the tech channels and making sure that you're looking at what are the surrounding services, if you will, in the channel that is going to be important for you as you go to market and build out that channel. So for many of you, maybe telco is one that's always been in your remit, but telco is changing as well. What is their wraparound services that are going to be important in the way that you sell? And then also there are, additional channel partners as part of the ecosystem. And I would say oftentimes we put those into influencers. I'm going to call them channels in themselves. These are digital agencies. There's a ton of work that we're working around digital agencies, professional services, accounting, CPA, more business channels that have been in the traditional side, but actually are now becoming very, very important as you build out the ecosystem of the future. So if you move now to the next slide, if you connect this ecosystem, where are they all coming to transact? They're all coming to transact in the marketplace. If you have not built your marketplace, that's okay. Because it's really interesting what's happening. There are marketplaces that are available to actually join in as aggregators. So as you look at some of the distributors that are changing their marketplace strategy to bring people in, that's one area to take advantage of that. I would say, advice, of course, on marketplace is to try to not bifurcate in too many areas, but think about what your marketplace strategy is going to be, whether that's through partner, whether that's through a connection, through your sort of distribution channel, or you're building your own, or you're partnering, with another partner to partner. Building a consolidated marketplace is something where the whole ecosystem will play. And quite frankly, going back to the beginning, where we're seeing customers now look at new ways to transact, new ways to try offerings, to check out IP. The marketplace is definitely here to stay. And so important one to build. The second is how to monetize. And this is something that we'll continue to talk through, and we can ask this certainly around the questions. Now, how do you monetize if you're in a marketplace where it feels like we've just shifted to another essentially transactional model? This is around value of a service. And so when we think about, infrastructure as a service, PaaS, SaaS, etc., they can all start to blend together. The important thing now is, what is the resource that you're going to put in place? Or you as a resource, how do you change your viewpoint on the way that you manage the channel to really help focus on value as a service? And we think about this in really building out sort of this community manager sort of role. And the community manager, think of community manager as the channel version of maybe customer success manager that you might be seeing on the commercial side. But it is the person that actually, or community that actually builds the community, ensures that you're bringing together everything that we talked about, from industry to associations to thought leadership, and sort of building the opportunity and the discussion to differentiate you, differentiate your channel program, differentiate your value beyond the product. And this is where this value as a service and the role to bring this together becomes incredibly important. Now, if you focus on value as a service and you think about changing the business model, why do I say partner experience is king? We've focused many, many years on getting the customer experience correct. Very, very important. We recognize that the buying patterns for customers are changing. Think about the buying pattern for your partner. Who is your partner going to choose when you think about some of these services feeling somewhat the same as we get into a cloud world? Margins are shrinking, looking at different opportunities for modernization. How you differentiate is going to be so incredibly important around the partner experience. And that means everything from being able to go beyond the product to things like, customer service. There's great opportunities to actually help them sell. Being able to provide concierge and what Microsoft calls red carpet services. What is it that you're going to do to be able to help differentiate your channel program and your products beyond? Then you need to understand that there is still a link between the partner experience and the customer experience. Think about things like rebates. Think about things like incentives. Think about areas where you might make investment in things like what we call, partner incentives to that land to the customer. If the partner experience is bad and the customer experience then feels that experience, the customer is not happy and we leave the customer high and dry. So oftentimes we have a group that thinks about the customer experience and they don't live in the partner channel. They live oftentimes in a different part of an organization. And then you have the partner group that is thinking about the partner experience. And my sort of advice to you is, bring those together. They don't have to sit in the same organization, but you should be having a dialogue to ensure that the end-to-end experience, from how you help the partner to what that feels like at the customer, is highly connected. And lastly, I'll just say that we are now in a journey of the cloud, and it is more important than ever that you think about simplification and you think about personalization, because it is not a one size fits all. Making partners go through multiple hoops to do artificial sort of acts is not something that is going to keep your partners there. How do you provide the best service in a simplified way and feels highly personalized to that partner is going to do a few things for you. Is going to keep them there. It is going to increase loyalty, and you will actually see customer acquisition and growth from the channel. And so these are ones that I think oftentimes we overlook in the rush to update what our partner program looks like. And if you build your North Star with a partner obsessed mentality around simplification and personalization, I think that will go a very, very long way. Now, lastly, I talked a little bit about emerging technology, near and dear to my heart as I'm leading now our AI, cloud, and sustainability work. Many I'm working with is building a new channel again, and I'm building a new channel and building out business models that are going to showcase, wait, it's not just about the core service any longer. It is all about the wraparound services that are happening in this emerging tech. It is no longer emerging. If you look at the data right here, you can see that the CAGR growth for things like IoT, AI, security, virtual reality, 3D printing, robotics, I can go on, is outweighing everything that we have been looking at from traditional technology today. And yet our channel often feels like they're going to dip the toe there because they're not exactly sure how they can make money. Here's my feedback to you. You need to be recruiting heavily in this space. You need to be building a channel of the future that has the capability and has the skills to be able to go address this. Why do I actually say that becomes important? Well, if you go to the next slide, it is really important because at the end of the day, it is really about making sure that they are capturing the future share. And if your partners are not capturing that future share, somebody else will, because you saw the growth and the opportunity that is there. Customers are investing in those technologies today. They are building solutions that are part of digital transformation that take advantage of those capabilities. And so my guidance is it's less about the monetary value of that individual tech for your partner. It is about the solution set of where actually your partners will be able to fit in. And so that's going to require a couple things. Where does your technology stack fit in emerging tech? Where do you play? Make sure that that's very clear to your partner. And then build that compelling recruitment and readiness for that emerging technology. And again, we've built things, for example, at Microsoft, where we'll have top 100 lists for AI, top partners in IoT. We're building nuances and specializations in our own channel to make sure that they're getting clarity on where the tech stack fits, value around being ready and capable, but then also showing how they can make money through the services that they're building in the business model of the future. Business models are hard. There are lots of us that can come together to certainly share, and I'm happy to answer questions on that. But if you don't build the business model of how your channel is going to make money in emerging tech, what you're going to be in is a very similar situation where we saw ourselves on trying to transform the channel to the cloud, still in a legacy business. Many of those channel partners are not making money now. Many of those channel partners are starting to go out of business. We don't want to see that happen again in the world of big data and the emerging tech. Build those business models, build your channel, and future-proof, if you will, the opportunity for the channel of the future. Now, I'll take a stop for a second. These were fast lessons, if you will, on how we think about transforming the channel. But I want to switch now for a second to help you understand that COVID is not stopping customer transformation today. So while you might be feeling like the channel is slowing down, we might all be feeling like the channel is struggling on some of the things that we need to go lean in on. The reality is that customer transformation is still happening. And so what does that mean from a channel perspective? First of all, where is the investment happening? You can look at right now that basically projects are still going. Many of them will remain unchanged, or more interesting enough, they're being reevaluated and actually getting bigger to deliver a higher ROI and driving more efficiency in the work that they're doing today. So basically, customers are not slowing down, they're reimagining how they think about this in a COVID world. The second thing that's happening is that when you think about the trust during COVID, and the customer transformation knows and recognizes they have to do digital transformation. So then where are they focused on? Where are you going to have your channel focused on? And I thought this was an interesting insight to look at of all the areas where you see companies, and I will say large and small, this is not just a commercial enterprise statement, this is all the way down to a small business. You can see at the very top is about digital trust. Why is that? Why are customers focused on digital trust? Well, in a COVID environment, everything we do now and interact is through digital. Look at where we all are today. We are all on a platform having a conversation in a virtual world. Think about your local bank. Think about your local restaurant. Think about any industry of which you just as a consumer interact. that digital trust as a consumer is going to be super important. So how is your channel addressing that? The second one, I think more interesting and where I see a lot is around, hey, how do I optimize my operations? How do I streamline? How do I get smarter? We saw big breaks in manufacturing during COVID. We saw gaps in supply chain. We saw essentially sort of supply dry up in particular areas because simple things like I couldn't actually get fresh produce into the grocery store. I couldn't get masks into the hands of the consumer. How do we optimize operations using digital transformation to basically streamline that and be more efficient? And every industry has this as a top priority. And then the last is around business models. Business models is one where I might be selling today, and the way that my customer is going to interact with me tomorrow might be very different. And in that difference, I need to think about what that looks like. Great example just in my current world was sustainability. Sustainability used to be something that was either demanded by the government or something that was good to do. Now we recognize that there's real value and business opportunity as we build new sustainable business models. And so companies that were once working on sustainability for themselves are digitizing those capabilities and creating new business models and new revenue streams for them in other markets. And so as certain revenue potentially slows down or even dries up in a COVID world, new business models is that opportunity to hockey stick. So again, why do I share this with you? I think it's so important for you as channel leaders to understand where your customer is focusing so that you can double down and help the channel focus on the business scenarios that are going to help you most. So, what does this now mean for you? I've spent time on where the channel is transforming, the areas I would suggest that you think about focusing on. But at the end of the day, this is about recruiting the new ecosystem. This is about looking at the channels that have the highest level of maturity. They are the disruptors. They are the people that are already creating new and innovative solutions to help have better business outcomes. I'll give you an example of a great partner who's basically using AI and bot technology to improve the way that they use MBRs, business reviews. Think about the manual hours that have to go in to look and see about how the performance of your business is happening. What if you could take 80% of that manual labor out and be able to automate that in an interesting way? Well, that's a channel partner that is looking at, hey, I've always been in the service business. I'm going to bring IP and I'm going to be a disruptor. When you think about the partners that are looking themselves as disrupting their own business, they will end up being the differentiators in this new market. So, what does that mean? We need to help really create that moment of disruption. We know that IP becomes a huge opportunity as we think about revenue and profit of the future. IP is that repeatable opportunity to be able to scale in a market wrapped around with services. We understand investments become super important. And when you invest in particular areas around your solution set, you're actually going to see a higher ROI from that. Customer success, one we didn't talk so much about, but how are you building a channel that thinks about customer success as the end mile to the customer? We know that when a channel has a focus on customer success, the performance and acceleration in cloud goes up in a hockey stick. And what I mean by that is it's not now just selling in, it's not just the transaction, it's about giving them the services and the support to help them drive consumption on the other side with their customers. The last two, I think, are two of the most important. And the first is people. Are you building a channel? Are you helping create opportunity to build and retain a digital savvy staff? And I might just add not only digital savvy, but a diverse staff. Because we know that diversity in the channel is able to exponentially create in the disruption, the innovation, and ultimately the growth actually in revenue. And lastly, in leadership. And this leadership is something for you to take away, which is, are you able to bring leadership to drive organizational change for your channel program? Are you able to showcase how we need to do things differently? How do we shake it up? How do we think outside of the box? When you can bring that leadership around organizational change, you will see performance accelerate, not only for your product, for your company, but for the channel ecosystem. And so I challenge and offer up to all of you, don't be afraid of that leadership opportunity. That is why we're all here today. We are all channel leaders. We all have the opportunity to drive the disruption of the future. And so I will just sort of land on a couple things that I think for you to take away is very important. The first is around vision and strategy. If you don't have your vision and strategy articulated and outlined to help support with other executives at your company, you will not drive the disruption and the channel change you need. Document your vision, document your strategy, and circulate that strategy to all of your peers, to all of the other executives in different parts of the line of business. It is very important to understand the importance of what the ecosystem is going to play in the future. The second is around culture. I briefly talked about this, and I hope we're going to talk a lot more about this, but I'm very passionate not only about women in cloud, women in STEM, but diversity in general, and bring in diversity and culture into the channel to ensure that we have diverse perspectives, diversity of thought, and ultimately, as I had mentioned, the revenue speaks for itself when you be able to bring that culture shift into the organization. You are a channel leader. What is your unique potential? Make sure you understand that better than anybody else, and then be able to weave that into your vision and strategy so that that unique potential gets landed into every channel partner that is loyal and supportive to you, and every channel opportunity to bring them into your program. And then lastly is capabilities. I think you wouldn't be here if we weren't learning together to understand what are the capabilities we have today and what are the capabilities, quite frankly, we still need to build to have the best channel program, the best channel strategy, if you will, of the future. And my just say in closing, I am learning every day. It is impossible to think that you will always have all the capabilities to have the perfect channel, to be the perfect channel leader, to actually be the perfect community manager or partner account manager, or whatever role that you may play. And so have that learner's mindset. Think outside of the box. Be inquisitive, ask questions, be in conferences like this one, which is so important, and use this opportunity to dig into all of the incredible breakout sessions today to improve upon yourself, upon your organization, and build the capabilities to ensure that you are driving a channel ecosystem of the future through the incredible channel leadership that I know you all will provide. And so with that, I will want to thank all of you for listening, welcoming you again to the day, and opening up, I think, potentially if we have time for a couple questions.
We certainly do, Gretchen, and what an awesome start to the day. You covered a phenomenal amount of ground in a very short space of time. So if anyone has questions for Gretchen, pop them in the question box, and I will pick up on those and come to Gretchen. I've got a couple of questions myself. One of the
Okay.
big challenges on this is when we moved to the cloud, we left a lot of our partners behind. What can we as an industry do to stop that happening once again? What would you advise the people on the call at the moment that they should be doing with their partner groups? Because this is changing so fast. A lot of them are really small companies. Um, what do we do?
Fantastic question. For those of you who don't know, many years ago, I was actually on the first wave of leading cloud strategy for our channel. And that was front and center back then when we were in an on premise world trying to get to the cloud. And the answers back when was if you didn't make it, you didn't make it. And the reality is that's just not, it's not good business. It's not good business for a channel, but we need the channel. So now we're at sort of this inflection point again, Rod, you're exactly right. We're now in the cusp of big data, emerging tech that's actually here to stay. And my advice would be that instead of like, hey, focus on the two that's going to make it, what is the readiness? What is the business model support? What is even some of the business training, quite frankly, that is required to really help companies make the shift? Because when you're making a shift, and if you're a channel partner and oftentimes quite small, making a leap of faith like that is a huge business decision. It is a huge financial decision. And sometimes it's so much easier to work on your run rate, work on your existing, customer set, because you have that. But that will dry up. That is shifting. That is the point of my conversation today. So the three things that I would say that we learned last time, from software to cloud and now cloud to sort of next set of technology, is um, don't leave those partners behind. Educate them. Help make sure you're reaching out to them with business value, business modeling, and even sort of business training, if you will, so that they understand the business aspect of investing, not just the technology capabilities, of the future.
Fabulous. And I had a bunch of questions for you, which I'm going to rapidly ditch because we've got great questions coming in from the audience.
Fantastic.
And I've got a great question from Eric. Can you talk a little bit more about what a community manager does on a day-to-day basis? And is this viewed as a sales role or more of a customer success role?
Yeah, it's a great question. It has been viewed more as a customer success role. However, when you look at even customer success roles that sit in the field in the commercial space, there is a sales element to it. So while it is focused really on the engagement and the connectiveness of that, ecosystem component, to be able to change share of voice, change sort of dialogue and opportunity for you in the market, it does have a sales aspect, because you're building those relationships with the affiliates. You're building those relationships to get sort of top presence and top of mind in some of the industry associations or some of the various events and other things. So while more of a customer success role and quite needed, quite frankly, I never think that those customer success roles, and in this case, community manager, does not have or need sales capability. And that's my personal point of view. But I think having an element of sales to it continues to help drive the right conversation and connect the dots.
Fabulous. Another question. You mentioned disruptive partners. Got a great question from a member of the audience. What are the key elements that will help you identify a disruptive partner?
Yeah, it's a great question. So a disruptive partner normally is somebody that is going to be vocal in reaching out to change the way that they do business today, might make a radical change in the way that they actually think about their business model. They might actually do partner to partner, where they're building a coalition of partners to ultimately change the way that they engage with the customer. And so those are some of the, I would say, signals that look at, where partners are naturally disrupting themselves. And we're all kind of going after them, I would say, at the same time. Those are the easy ones. These are the ones that are building IP into their services, creating value as a service, doing some really interesting last mile work, etc. It's the ones that we don't all, it's now the mass that we don't find, that we need to help in thinking in the disruption. But I would say those are a couple things to look for when partners are actually disruptors themselves. Oftentimes you will also see them out in the forefront of some of the emerging tech I just talked about, and they're having to force themselves to think about how they monetize that, which also is a disruptor indicator as well.
Okay. And a lot of questions coming in about, we left a lot of partners behind, so I'm going back on that for just a second.
Yeah.
Some of the partners just couldn't make the change to the cloud. So we try and transfer every partner to the new way of working, or being frank about it, do you see there's just going to be a number of casualties on the way, and at what point do we say, okay, this is just not going to work for
Yeah.
these people?
Yeah. So There are two schools of thought on that. I would say Microsoft certainly has a school of thought on that as well. But there will be a point that if you have done all of the training, the business model work that we just talked about, the sort of the red carpet and the engineering and the process, some will just not make it. And some are very lifestyle, very comfortable with what they have, and when they're done, they sunset and they're done. And so I think one of the things that we're starting to see is there is a set of channel partners that are very comfortable to sort of, I would call, sunset out, and putting that investment into that last 10%, 12%. I think ours is 17%. Or could you put all of that into the channel that's forward, disrupting, and growing? I think the business will say move it into the forward and the growing, because that's going to give you exponential returns for you and your company. I am a big advocate of a breadth strategy of bringing as many partners along as you can. But that goes sort of at a price, meaning that at some point there is a attitude and a certain persona of partners that, just as Rod, you just mentioned, they won't make it, and sometimes there's just a desire not to make it, and that's, I think, at a point where you as a channel leader need to decide sort of where you sort of make your next bet. And we'll make our bets on the partners that are raising their hands to move forward, because we'll see the higher returns there.
Okay. And I've got so many questions coming in. We won't be able to cover them all, but we will get back to you with answers on all of them. I mean, do
Absolutely.
you think channel organizations need to create disruptive, i.e., separate business units to help them exploit the new markets without being held back by competing for resources with legacy business units?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I'm in a job doing exactly what that question was. I'm in a new business unit, disrupting a channel and building a new ecosystem, because you still have a cloud business with a great revenue stream. And if you think about some of the work that I'm doing in AI and ML and IoT and others, the revenue is much smaller than what I would say your bigger channel would be. Do I get the airtime? Do I get the coverage? Do I get, sort of the budget of what I need? And so we've made decisions to build, if you will, incubation efforts to go after some of those particular areas. However, not everyone can afford to do that. And one of the one important things that I will say is I do that hand in hand with my what's called One Commercial Partner Organization. That's the main channel program. I do that hand in hand because you cannot be operating in a silo. So you have to make the decision, can you build that within the existing channel organization? Do you need to have existing or new sort of incubation areas? Whatever decision you decide as a channel leader or that your channel organization decides, just don't operate separately. I guess that would be my point. They're like the biggest partner, whether you're inside or outside, because ultimately it's one ecosystem. It is a connected channel. And we need to be able to leverage all of the best and the goodness that's already there today, and not try and create something so new that your channel partners, back to that experience point, start to feel like, oh, I'm in this, and then I'm in this, and I'm in this program. Like, we don't want that. We want to have one program. We want to have one engagement. We want to be as simple and easy to transact as possible, but then put some resources to make sure that we're going after the new and building the new for the future.
Okay. And I've got another great question. This is going to involve partner investment. How do we persuade the partners to invest to move to the new strategy?
It's a great question. This is like right to my. This is right near and dear to my heart. Um, So I would say, well, I'll tell you how we're doing it, and then I'd be interesting for people to have some dialogue today. And I'm always, like I said, learning on capabilities on this. It all comes down to business case and business model, in my opinion. It is less about, do we have the skills, because companies can train and build the skills, or they can acquire, and oftentimes we're seeing lots of acquisition within the channels as well, with different partners merging, or even P2P where they're coming together with different capabilities. But to invest there, they need to understand that there's a business case and a business rationale, and that they're going to see money and sort of, again, that hockey stick of recurring revenue over time. And so for me, my focus has been a lot on ROI models, business value, looking deeply into when you invest in tech in a particular industry, what do we see the growth uh, projections look like, so that when I have conversations with partners myself and partner leaders and partner CEOs, we can have a business conversation to say, if you're going to invest here, here's the length, but here's sort of where you're going to see the growth over time.
Okay. And another question. Are you seeing vendors moving the reseller partners who may not be making the transition to a distributor managed model? In other words,
yeah, no, I get it. It's a great question. I think that in the industry, you're seeing more of that. And I'll tell you why. I think that the value of our distributors are also being in a mode of disruption. They're doing incredible work in creating value in the distribution channel, everything from their own marketplaces to those red carpet services that I talked about, even helping and facilitating, partner to partner or P2P, to be able to take advantage of some of the opportunities that maybe a partner alone wouldn't be able to do. Those services, because those are happening, those resellers can also now be better suited and served, if you will, in that environment. And I think as an industry, because of those models changing, you'll see more of us moving, many of those traditional resellers into that channel.
excellent. And I've got time for just a couple more questions. They're piling in at the moment, so keep them flowing.
These are no softballs, right?
Uh,
These are good questions. All
And
right.
I've got another question. One of the other issues that's obviously a huge challenge for a lot of people is influencers. And I think as we move into this new model, they're going to become more and more important. Have you any examples of influencer programs that have worked or failed? And if so, why?
Okay, this is this is a fabulous
We
question.
could
I
talk
would
about this
encourage,
for about
we
three
could
days.
have a whole day just on this, and hopefully there's some additional sessions we can talk about it.
There are indeed
So
later in the conference.
fantastic. So I'll be brief, and then please dig in, because this is one top of mind, I think, for every channel leader. So first of all, influencer channels that you just talked about, absolutely important. Um, Programs work and they fail, in all sorts of reasons. Some of the failures, quite frankly, is trying to show the value and revenue to your executive team on the investment that it makes to build out those channels. Because they're influencers, they're not necessarily selling product, and you don't see the transactional revenue that gets associated with that. And so that gets hard to get the investment to go do that. So where they are successful, or where I've seen them successful, and where we're continuing to invest ourselves here at Microsoft, is making sure that when we invest in a particular type of influencer or affiliate, we're clear on the value that we're bringing, and we can track the influenced revenue back into the opportunity. And because by nature of what this market does, they're not the ones that are doing the selling. They're not the ones that are doing the transaction themselves. But the reality is similar to channel marketing. It's not just one instrument that actually is going to get you to the sale. And so it would be, sort of almost disbelief that just the influencer or affiliate in that program was the one way of which you got that actual opportunity. It's actually, think about it as a great marketing mix, but think about it as an ecosystem mix. And each has a role to play, and they each have a sort of an opportunity to contribute to then the purchasing or buying decision, if you will, at the customer. And so I always try and paint the picture of the value of the ecosystem. I talk about the ecosystem. I don't really talk about the channel anymore, because the ecosystem means so much more than just who's transacting. And then I try and contribute to two things. One is influenced revenue, and the other is what I call share of voice. And I actually have analytics that track actually share of voice. So in other words, are they actually talking, building, contributing, if you will, to the growth of our particular product, service, or offering. And I think those are the two areas that become really important in that area.
Gretchen,
but I welcome your thoughts on that all day, so love to talk about it more.
absolutely. Thank you so very, very much. I mean, an awesome presentation, and I think even better when it came to the Q&A. So some tremendous insights, and love the fact that everyone came in with tons of questions. Keep that going during the course of the next few days. I also see a lot of stuff going on in the chat box, but I wish there was some way in a virtual platform you could set up the noise of a round of applause. Maybe our tech guys have to look at that, because I'm sure you get a huge amount of applause at the moment. So thank you very, very much indeed. If a question was missed, it's not Gretchen's fault, it's mine. We'll pick up on that, and I'm sure Gretchen and her team, when we send those questions to her, will be kind enough to get the answers to the questions we didn't get to. But
Absolutely.
Gretchen, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Awesome opening session. And I know everyone really, really enjoyed it. So
thank you very much.
The next sessions are going to begin in 15 minutes' time. And you'll see that the platform has splendidly turned them upside down. So session 2, for some reason, on the left-hand column is before session 1. But they are both there. So pick in a few minutes' time the session you'd like to go to, and just click on that session. But once again, Gretchen, thank you so very much. And also a big thank you to the people in the audience for getting so involved, asking all the great questions, getting involved in the chat. That's what we want to see. We want to make this as open, as interactive as we possibly can over the next 3 days. Gretchen,
incredible.
Huge thank you.
Thanks, everybody.